Hmm. Okay, I'm guessing this is going. Almost two-thirds of the way through this whole project, 100 days of live. Remember, the person who suggested it, Perry Chase, mentioning that this can be very transformative. Um, yeah. It's quite impressive, really. So, what am I throwing arms here? So, in the wake of yesterday's video, like I'll try to recap the essence that I'm using here because I'm extending this. This is a continuation, but I don't want to assume that somebody who's watching this has watched that. I've noticed that this is actually dissolving. I can feel it actually dissolving. The structures that are involved with should and need to and have to, all of those kinds of emotional tensions in me. And this is wonderful. I won't go into all the details about why I think that is so good, why I think that's so important. I've made many videos about this before and written a whole lot about this before. I think other people have too. Like this, um, I'm not even sure where to point. It's just sort of overwhelming. Um, but the gist of it, I can encapsulate it in terms of what I was talking about yesterday. So when I look at things like, so what would be a good example? So the kind of maybe a modern example is a little too tense. So look at something like when somebody doesn't have a job and they're going, "Oh, I should get a job." Part of the problem is that go get a job is not a basic action. The same way lift the arm is. Like there's a very clear what I would call a viable path. There's a clear viable path to um, being able to raise the arm. There isn't an obvious viable path to getting a job. And the process of trying to do so often creates a lot of emotional exhaustion. And it's not what the person wants to be doing with their time, their energy. There's a lot of rejection. The rejection takes an emotional toll. There's the anticipation of rejection, which can drain energy. So, like, there's a lot of complexity here. There's a lot of complexity. So, this business of, well, I should get a job. What's the should doing? Well, to some extent, it's a matter of using internal pain in order to create motivation. But in practice, what usually happens is the loop between not knowing how to do the activity, trying and failing, and then the failure bumping into the pain that says, well, I should. And the should has kind of a threat. Like, if I don't, I'm a bad person. If I don't, I'll have to realize I'm a bad person. And so that pushes into some kind of efforting. The efforting may not necessarily be going out and trying to get a job or whatever. It may be um, it may be thinking about it, but then the thinking evokes depression or exhaustion, or the person suddenly gets sleepy, or they get distracted, or maybe they go and they start working on the computer trying to do some kind of Google search for various jobs, and then they just find themselves on Twitter. Right? So they sort of fail in a particular way, and then the failure loops back into disheartening, and the disheartening comes back and hits the shame wall again. So it's this loop back and forth between do an activity I don't know how to do and make myself do it. This loop back and forth between the two. I don't mean to say that this is a guaranteed structure, but this is a pretty common one. A lot of people build in pain loops like this and just install it into themselves. If the sense of should or need to, I need to take care of this, if there's a sense of pain or force that's involved in the background, there's an issue. There's kind of an issue here. So Um, if you're listening to that and you're going, I just disagree, well, cool, you disagree. That's fine. If you're interested in taking it as a hypothesis that I'm right, then the rest of this will have more meaning for you. And if you can just tell, you can resonate with, oh yeah, I would like to be free of this, then yeah, then I have something to say about that. I can observe how what I'm doing seems to be working. Of course, it remains to be seen over the course of days and weeks, but I'm watching the engine change, and I see why it's changing and how. So there's a lot of excitement for me there. I'm not going to debate whether this is a good thing to do or what. How do you motivate yourself? You don't have this obligation. It turns out there are things other than pain, but the short version is I'm not going to really dig into that too much for now. So the main thing that clicked for me, and I articulated yesterday, is this recognition of, oh, the only thing I have control over is what I intend. But I do have control over that. Maybe that's an illusion, but what it means to be subject to the illusion is that that is what I have the impression of controlling. So to the extent free will is going to mean anything, what I have free will over is only and exactly what I intend. That's it. And then my intention hits things, and then if I hold the intention, the act of interacting with the difficulty creates some kind of learning pathway. That's the gist of it. So I have been intending to hold the intention to serve and embody the eternal. Now, here I touched on it very briefly. I haven't gone into another iteration of trying to articulate what I'm referring to. This is the same thing I was talking about before in a previous video when referring to clear knowing. It's a deeper cut. Clear knowing, I can now see, is an expression of the eternal. I'm using language to hone in on a very particular feeling, a very particular clarity that is in some sense the essence of what I am. To the extent that I have a kind of individuality, what is that? I'm tracking, oh, it is about, or it is the eternal. That feels like it's actually capturing something important. And in a future video, ideally in one in the morning, I'm much more alert, awake, alive, engaged, dynamic for the morning one. So I prefer to do this in a morning one. But at some point I'll talk about what I mean and make another stab at articulating that, because it is important that this be expressed clearly. But the important part is I have been intending to hold the intention to do something. And so this is like the reason for that structure is that I can't if my intention were to be aware of my body, I'm just going to do everything I can to be fully aware of my body in every moment. Well, I can intend to do that, and then it flickers. And, I mean, I'm realizing maybe the logic of this is not terribly important. The essential thing is that I'm attending to intention as opposed to something else. I'm not trying to make myself embody the eternal. I'm intending to embody the eternal. I have control over the intention, and if the intention is sincere rather than a story I tell myself, it will eventually find a way to manifest. That's what an intention is. But I also notice, and this has been a huge, huge freeing upgrade. I notice these things like, for instance, it used to be when I was trying to be present. There's an experience of, am I here? Boom. Oh, now I'm awake. I suddenly notice my feet. I notice my breath. I notice that I'm looking out from behind my eyes. I notice that I'm experiencing in this present moment. I'm not just talking about it, I'm experiencing it. Okay, great. And then wait 30 seconds. Almost guaranteed I'll be somewhere else. I'll be lost in thought. And then I would pop back and, right, I'm here. How do I stay here? How do I stay here? Oh, fuck, I just lost it. Okay, I'm here. Now I'm just saying I'm here and I'm not. So there's this pain because I was trying to force something. I was trying to control whether I'm present or whether I'm aware of my awareness. But I don't have control of whether I am aware of my awareness. What I have control of is my intention to be aware of my awareness. So by owning the intention and having a hands-off attitude about manifestation is not my responsibility. It can't be because I don't have control over it. I have control over intent. And that intent does this thing of feeling out into the world, the same way I can feel out into my fingers. I intend to move my fingers, and I'm so used to them responding to my intention that I naturally feel it as though I'm moving my fingers. But I'm not really moving my fingers. I'm intending to move my fingers, and the intention causes this machine to respond. It's just an easier shortcut for me to skip past observing all of that and just pretend I'm moving my fingers. Same thing with, I'm going to drink from this cup. There's an invisibility to the cup. That's important for a functional reason, but it doesn't make it any less true that I don't actually have control of the cup. I have control over my intention with the cup. That's it. So because of that, if I try to pick up the cup and the cup shatters, or if I start trying to type and my fingers keep messing up. Like some days my typing speed drops dramatically and I don't know why. It's like my fingers are confused or something. This is a place where I feel the fact that I don't have control over that level. But it's a truth that's always there. It's just that there's a kind of grace, a sort of miracle that's involved in the fact that my intention has anything to do at all. Miracle is what an intention is made of. An intention is to touch the world in some fashion, to intend a kind of manifestation. So by holding a specific intention, basically intending to be devoted to the eternal, I can't control whether I am tracking that presence, whether I'm actually in touch. But I can choose to move in that direction to the best of my ability. So because of that, when I would, in effect, do that same thing of, oh, right, I'm here. Oh, right, the eternal. Right. There's a grace, there's a simplicity. Instead of, oh, fuck, I messed up. Instead, it's, oh, right. And then, and this is the key part, this is the part that is actually ending should, right? Like the reason I choose that has, like, there's some reasons behind it. There's some things I go, oh, this provides a type of experience that I want. Alignment with my essence. This makes sense to me. I mean, I'm using some jargon. I'm not going to explain the jargon. Tough. But there's a reason I pick it. There's a reason I pick the eternal. There's a reason I pick essence. But I'm not choosing it for the reasons. I'm choosing it because I choose it. I intend it. If I choose it for the reasons, then what happens is those reasons can become some of the should spikes that drive me, that create pain when I mess up. So in this case, there would be this experience of, oh, right, I haven't been paying attention to the eternal for the last 10 minutes. Oops. And then I'll feel a type of anxiety arise. Did I fuck up? How do I do better? Oh God. Although those are the thoughts that happen. The energy moves up. It's an awful feeling. And then it hits the mind, and the mind revs through these thoughts. Because that feeling, that rising up, is an intention. But the intention isn't just service. The intention isn't alignment, it's not devotion. The intention is produce this kind of result. And it's mixed in with some things about pain. And this is a detail I haven't quite nailed down yet. I eventually will. I'm going to see this and examine this in a lot of detail, because this is it. This is how everything happens. This is how the mind can be involved in making anything happen at all. So having a very clear way of describing this is going to be very important for me. It's going to be important for the eternal that is in each person as well. Absolute clarity. Absolute clarity. That's a direction I very much want to move in, and I'm going to. I am moving in that direction. But one step at a time, and this is where I'm at. I can only intend. Right? So there's this welling up. Because I'm holding this intention, I intend to be in stable devotion to the eternal. Coming from that lens, from that orientation, this energy that comes up, in the past, I wouldn't have an intention to compare it to. What I would have is, this boots up, the intention that is embedded in the energy that boots up sort of floods my consciousness. And then I sort of look at it and I go, I guess you're in charge now. Because I've been passive, I've been sort of limp, I've been sort of floating through life. I haven't been choosing what I'm doing. Occasionally a choice will burst through, but then as soon as it hits a challenge, as soon as it hits a strong energy that's counter, I'm not choosing which intention to follow. I'm sort of going back to, well, whichever one's stronger must be the right one. Now I can see so much better, so much more clearly. And because of that, it doesn't matter how strong the fear or anxiety is of, oh God, I screwed up. I messed up in my intent. I didn't succeed. This is a drama I don't need at all. So I can recognize that, and that boots up. And the question becomes, how does what booted up relate to the eternal? It's the only question I ask. How does it relate to the eternal? The answer might be not at all. At which point it's just like, okay, well then, here's this anxiety. And that happened. In practice, most of the time, it's actually, oh, there's this drive, and this drive holds the energy of a type of care. So I can feel that care and sort of reclaim it. But I'm reclaiming it with the intention of devotion to the eternal. So because of that, it dissolves. Because I'm not feeding it. Like once upon a time, I had some kind of intention, and I stored it in this ball of energy, what in yoga is called a samskara, not to be confused with samsara. It's a samskara that gets stored and then gets activated later. It's a trigger. So how do I relate to that stored intent? Well, it's an intention I had before. How does it relate to my intention now? Is it the same? Is it compatible? This is not a matter of mental analysis, but it is a matter of acknowledging, looking at it and feeling, and always asking, not asking, holding this intent. So I can't even control my mind. I can't control what I ask. What I can do is look to my mind and intend for my mind to behave in a certain way. I can ask my mind questions. I can intend for it to tell me what I did this last Christmas. I can intend for it to tell me what I ate for breakfast this morning. I can intend for it to tell me how I might solve a particular math problem. But I don't have control over what it does. All I have is control over how I intend, or what I intend, I should say, and how strongly. Something like how strongly. So because of that, whatever should arises, whatever sense of obligation, or, oh, I screwed up, or I'm a bad person, it becomes trivial. Absolutely trivial. whatever. Like I'm not ignoring it, because the question is not, oh, what algorithm do I follow? The question is, what would be in service to the eternal? Not because I have to, and not because I think this is the right question for others to ask. It's that I'm using the eternal as a focal point. There's a reason I pick it. I'm not going over that in this video. Okay? But the point is that I have a focal point that I am choosing. I have one intention. I could have 5, I could have 20, that's fine. They tend to scatter. There's sort of a competition thing that happens with multiple. But by holding one intention, everything else relates to that one intention. Everything else. And then I encounter the shame, the guilt, the fear, and I notice, oh, that reaction is not in service to the eternal. And I observe that fact, and I contrast it with my intention, and I go, oh. So I don't have to feed it. I can reclaim that energy. And just today, I had a lot more energy. It varies from day to day. We'll see how the energy goes. I expect my energy will dip again later too, particularly as I pull up more things that are not compatible with the intention that I'm holding now. Because they react and they go, no, 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 but what about having this drama where you can't actually be with your girlfriend? Or what about this thing where you have this ongoing tension around money, or blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know what things, but I'll encounter them. It's sort of like reality going, are you sure? Are you sure you want to change it? And I could just go, oh, wait, no, never mind. You know, that is kind of hard. Or I could go, yes. Yes. I don't have to have a lot of energy behind it. It's just absolutely clear. I choose this. And in doing that, it actually dissolves the should energies. It's so freeing. It is so freeing. So that's the current status. As with any kind of psychotechnology, any kind of thing that is like, oh, here's an idea that, when embodied, becomes this dynamic system and transforms our experience. Like language. Language is an amazing psychotechnology. Okay. There's sort of a question of, well, what happens in a week? What happens in a month? But I'm guessing right now, because of what I've seen and how I see how this works, this is actually doing the deep change I've been looking for. It's really freeing. It's also really scary. So I can see some of what's on the horizon. It hasn't gotten here yet, so it's not quite so real to my system yet, but there are going to be some things that challenge my choice. It'll be interesting to find out how I model this, how I mentally model this in the wake of encountering those. Okay, that's all I've got. Just wanted to give this bit of a snapshot. Thanks for listening.